Okay, welcome back to this second video. Alright, so as I was mentioning before, in particular, I am going to use this essay by Benhabib in order to call your attention exactly on this phenomenon of political fragmentation. So here, we are not going to talk so much about social movements or, identity politics within the borders of a state, but we are actually going to see what's happening at the level of states. And as you can see here, page 29, in particular, also why there are so many separatist movements that ground their claims for separation on the basis of identity. So, first of all, it is very important that we remember what it means a separatist movement. Let me make an example of a separatist movement. For example, here in Europe at the moment, the Catalan separatist movement is very big. Catalonia is the region of Spain that is around Barcelona. Some of you might have been there before you had to leave Europe, alas. All right, Catalonia wants to separate from the rest of Spain exactly on the basis of identity, because they say, we are not Spaniards, we are something else. We are Catalans, and, for them, our identity is very important. Same story, the Basque countries. But as I said, in general, in Europe in the past 25 years, we had a lot of separatism, a lot of, separatist identity conflicts that even resulted in very violent conflicts. In fact, here in the essay, you will find a lot of references to the wars that, how can I say, the terrible wars that followed the dissolution of Yugoslavia. And in particular, you will find references to the Bosnian War. Just to cut a long story short, that former Yugoslavia has been the theater of horrible, violent, bloodshed, very, very bitter and bloody conflicts that were fought on the basis of ethnic identity. So, at this point, what we need to focus upon is the notion of ethno-nationalism. Because one of the big points of this essay is that there are different ways to conceive of national identity. Ethnocentrism is one of them. Now, let me tell you this, that, after the general introduction, you will see that there is a paragraph 2, Essentialism and Constructivist Debates in Contemporary Feminist Theory, that actually, if you wish, you can skip. What you need to retain is the meaning of the words essentialism and constructivism. You can skip this paragraph. Why? Because essentially is using the feminist debates as an example to explain what essentialism and constructivism mean. Whilst instead, I want you to focus very much on ethno-nationalism. Allora, here you will see that there are a lot of names of scholars and politicians, etc., that probably don't mean much to you. Okay, allora here the first one, you can see that this paragraph 4 begins with the name of an historian, Ernst Gellner. Allora, essentially, Ernst Gellner is an historian of European history that is making a very big claim that it is not the existence of nation that generates nationalism, but it's the other way around. Nationalism creates nation. That is to say, first of all, you have, the intention of a group of people to construct a nation, and then comes the nation. Perhaps here, at this point, it is also very important for me to stop and also highlight what is it that we mean when we speak about nationalism. Because nationalism is not, how can I say, the same thing as patriotism. Because one would say, what's wrong about patriotism? Nothing. But you know, when we Europeans in particular, we speak about nationalism, we speak about something more complicated than American patriotism. And why? Okay, what I'm going to say is not part of the reading. I'm telling you this so that the reading can make sense, okay? Allora, let me explain what's the difference between European nationalism and American nationalism. Well, you see, if I just look at the, class list of our class when we were all together, I find names coming from all over. Absolutely all over the literally all over the globe, perhaps. Okay, so I mean, now I remember I have Italian names like Gingerelli and Rispoli. The probably was Rispoli, and at the same time I have what? I have Gelfond, okay, or Dewey. All right, so that means that the American nation is composed of American citizens. That is, no American can claim to share the same blood with another American. And what I mean to say by blood, I mean to say, like, ethnicity, all right? Whilst instead, here in Europe, the concept of nation has been articulated in the 19th century by a series of political movements that instead presented an idea of nation as a natural community. All right? This is the problem of European nationalism. So, let me recapitulate. In order to read this essay, you need to be aware that there is a different way, a different experience rather, of nationalism in Europe than you have in the US. In the US, you have patriotism, and you love America, and you're proud of being American, but your identity as American is given by your constitution. In Europe, we had, sadly, an experience whereby national identity and ethnicity coincide. And this brings a more exclusivist, in many cases also more aggressive concept of nation. This is, the kind of background that Sheila Benhabib refers to. At the same time, Benhabib is very much aware that not necessarily every single nationalism necessarily ends up in ethnic hatred or Nazism or something like that. But surely there is a very, how can I say, dangerous side in identifying nationalism with ethnicity. And why? Because ethnicity is, in fact, an identity that people receive at birth. You can also use this term, by now you're familiar with it. It's a form of ascriptive identity. If you consider being American as an ethnicity, I can never become American. But if I consider Italian as an ethnicity, perhaps, yeah, some of you, Gingerelli, appunto, Rispoli, etc., yeah, I could say, oh, well, you have Italian blood in your veins. And perhaps, the first time that you saw Italy was, when you arrived at Peretola Airport for your, sadly, short stay in Florence. But you see, so this is why ethnicity can be very, very dangerous, very, very complicated. Also, you will find that there is another name that is very often, come si dice, quoted in this essay, and actually this name was also quoted in the essay by Appadurai, and this is the name of Benedict Anderson. Benedict Anderson, you see here, is an historian that has created a very fortunate expression. Because about 20 or 25 years ago, Benedict Anderson wrote a book by the title, Nation, Imagine Communities. By this, what did Anderson mean? Anderson meant to say that nations are not natural. Nations are imagined communities, meaning that nations are the results, national identities rather, are the results of political projects. And that, a national identity is the result of a complex process of creation that involves politics, but not solely. Also, for the creation of national identity, Anderson highlights how important can also be other kind of discourses. For example, art is absolutely crucial for the construction of national identity. In the experience of many European states, the construction of nations happened very much also with the help of, let's say, poetry, painting, music. Great musicians one fine day decided to, create what in their idea was, let's say, Hungarian folklore, or Italian folklore, or Spanish folklore. So, to a certain extent, the basic message that we get from this quote of Benedict Anderson, what is it? It is that, by quoting Benedict Anderson, Sheila Benhabib wants to alert us that, this whole idea of nation that we have in our ear since we were born, and that we tend to consider something absolutely natural, perhaps it's not natural, it's a creation. So, to a certain extent, the Italian nationality is a creation. It is easy to understand this, coming from America, perché appunto the USA, are the result of the melting pot, etc., etc. So I'm sure that you say, of course, nations are imagined communities. That's why we read, Walt Whitman, because it helped us to see what does it mean to be American, all right? Sure, but consider that in Europe we have a very different experience, and our different experience has been that of a nationalism that identified nation and ethnicity. Okay, I'll leave you for a few minutes and then I'm back to wrap up a little bit the argument of this essay. Thank you.